Trauma is a psychological and emotional response to a distressing event or disturbing event or series of distressing events. These events are often shocking, unexpected, life threatening, and can have a lasting impact on a person's mental and emotional well being. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a range of experiences that can actually cause a traumatic experience into a person's life. I'll be sharing five in actual fact today. Hi, ladies, how are you all doing? My name is Remy, and I am an unburdening and identity restoration specialist based in Bolton, United Kingdom. Now, when it comes to trauma, one thing I will always keep saying is do not sweep it under the carpet. Regardless of how insignificant you think your trauma is, ensure that you're looking into it and that you're dealing with it. And you're probably asking, why is Remy sharing this today? It's because, based on my experience in this field, which is not too long, I have seen that quite a lot of women have experienced trauma and have neglected it, and it is now having an adverse effect on their day to day lives. So let's go right into it. Number one on my list here is physical trauma. And I've written here it results from a physical injury or harm to the body. So you could have a traumatic experience from an accident, from sports injury, or acts of violence. So anything that physically impacts you is what we will call physical trauma. So have you had an accident in a car and find that now you're scared of going into cars? Or have you had an accident while driving and now you find that you don't want to drive anymore because you haven't overcome that trauma? This is something that you need to look into, because what you'll find is this physical trauma that you've experienced is depriving you of enjoying something as basic as driving a car. Number two on my list here is sexual trauma, and I have here involves unwanted sexual experiences or assault. So it could be rape, molestation, sexual harassment. Have you been through any one of these? It's possible that you've been raped, you've been molested, sexually harassed, and I must say this: you can be traumatized sexually even if the person never actually penetrated. So it's possible that you were almost raped, but they weren't successful with the rape. But there was some sort of sexual harassment. So even though you were not raped, you might still suffer from sexual trauma because there was a harassment that went on. Your mind is still trying to deal with the fact that this could have actually happened, and you might find yourself feeling a certain way towards sex. Or one thing I find is people who have suffered sexual trauma can now find themselves offering themselves casually to every man that wants to have sex. So if you find yourself in this state, understand that you have a traumatic experience that you haven't dealt with. Please look into it. Number three here is childhood trauma. And I've written here unpleasant experiences during childhood, e.g., neglect, abuse, family dysfunction. So it's possible that you grew up in a home where your parents weren't present, or maybe you grew up with a guardian and there was a lot of neglect in raising you. So you had needs that weren't met. You had times where you were sad or you needed someone to talk to, but your parents, your guardians were nowhere to be found. It could be a family dysfunction. It's possible that you grew up in a home where mom and dad were separated, divorced, or you grew up in a home where you saw your mom being physically abused. It might be domestic violence, or sometimes it's possible that your mom was the one abusing your father. Now, you must understand that all of these things leave a lasting effect on your mind. Think about it, because when I look at my life, I think I remember the things that happened to me when I was 5, 6. And this goes to show that you're not crazy for remembering the things that happened to you at such a young age. Now, it's possible that those things that you've dealt with as a child begin to affect you as an adult. So you find yourself not being able to function fully well as an adult because of the things that happened to you as a child. Don't say to yourself, well, this was so long ago. How come I'm still dealing with this? I need to get over it. Or don't listen to people who try to belittle your pain because it happened a long time ago. No, it's okay that that has happened, but it's not okay for you to keep suffering for something that happened to you so long ago. Look into it and get help. Number 4 on my list is what I call complex trauma, and this is exposure to multiple traumatic events, often after an extended period. So it's possible you're going through domestic violence for a long time, ongoing abuse. It could be war. Maybe you were there in the Second World War, and now with everything going on around the world again, you're finding that you're reenacting all of the things that you experienced in those times. This is something we call complex trauma, because complex trauma is something that is ongoing. So it's possible that you were constantly molested for years. Now you're in a marriage where you're constantly being abused. Okay, it could be domestic violence. You've been married to this person for 20 years, for 15 years, and he has constantly abused you. Complex trauma is a thing, but here's the thing: don't hide it. Don't feel like because you've endured for so long, you need to die this way. Speak up, get help about this thing you're struggling with, because there's always a way out. Now, my number 5, which is the last form of trauma I'm going to be sharing with you. Bear in mind, this is not all that there is, but I'm only sharing 5 today. Is the one we call the vicarious trauma, which is one that happens when individuals who are exposed to the trauma of others experience. So therapists might go through this, caregivers might go through this, and what you find is you begin to develop symptoms of PTSD, which is post traumatic stress disorder. Now, one thing I always advise to people is, if you are giving someone help, I know you have empathy. I know your emotions are there. Don't give help if you're not equipped to do so. Because what I find is, I see on social media people getting so angry because they try to help somebody and the person didn't take the help, or the person didn't complete the course of treatment. And then they get upset and they're raging and they're saying, I'm never going to help people anymore. And it's just a constant cycle. And I smile because I understand what they're going through. And it's sad at the same time, because if this person or these people are not careful, they might go into what I just explained, which is a vicarious trauma. And it's important that you look into it. Ensure that you're giving help that you're equipped to give. If you have somebody that is going through something, if you're not a mental health professional, if you're not equipped to do it, don't just jump on and say, I'm going to help you. Okay? Because dealing with people who are going through depression, who are going through trauma, who are going through whatever symptom personality disorders that they are going through is a hard job. It takes a lot of mental stability. You must learn to separate your emotions from what you're doing. Because what you'll find is, if you're not equipped, you will move from intense rage to intense, anger, rage, tiredness, fatigue, exhaustion, overwhelm. All of these things will come on you at the same time. So you need to be careful. Now, you must understand, on a final note, that people experience trauma differently, and it can impact people differently. So give yourself grace to heal. I find that people expect that I've been in therapy for 6 months. Why am I not healing? Why does it look like I'm going back instead of going forward? You must understand that expecting to heal from trauma that you've carried for years, expecting to heal from that in months, is crazy. Give yourself grace. Give yourself time to heal. It happens. It's not only you that has that moment where it looks like you're going forward and then you have a relapse. It happens to the best of us. But you get into that space where you're constantly seeking help so that your healing can be permanent. Now, I need to say this. If you find that you are going through any form of trauma, you find that you're going through any form of depression, you're finding that your mental health is not what it needs to be, please, please, please seek help, professional help, if you can afford it. A mental health professional. You can speak to a counselor, you can speak to a therapist. If you can't, look for support groups that are healthy, that offer support in a healthy way. Whatever you do, do not mask. Do not keep it to yourself. God did not create us to live alone and be alone. He created people so that we can get help and have people to share with. I understand that you've probably shared and you've been trampled upon, or you've been disappointed, you've been let down. There are situations of people sharing their stories and people have used it to preach. I know, but this does not mean that everybody is bad. There are good people, and this is why oftentimes I'll say seek professional help. Whatever it is, please don't keep quiet. I hope you found this helpful. If so, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you at my next video. Bye bye.